If you've been involved in FFA, or Future Farmers of America, if you've sat in a vocational agriculture classroom or an ag education classroom, as they call it today, you know what we're talking about when we say that the teacher involved, the ag education teacher, the VOAG teacher, was special indeed. And you've got some great memories of that individual. Today, we're talking to one of the best there is in the state of Oklahoma over the last half century. We're in the Agricultural Building in Amber, Pocasset, talking to Billy Scott. Billy teaching over the last half century here in Amber, Oklahoma. Billy, before we actually get into how you got involved in teaching agriculture, VOAG, ag education, let's get back and find out a little bit more about who you are and your involvement in this community, but just up the road in Minco, Oklahoma as well. Tell us about your beginnings.
I actually grew up in this county. I grew up in Minco, a couple miles west of Minco, out there on a farm that my granddad had, and my dad farmed there. And, it was just a typical kind of a farm at that time as far as we raised cattle and had some wheat and obviously some alfalfa hay and stuff. And I can remember even that we had like a small feedlot and stuff. So I grew up on that farm out there. Agriculture was very much involved as far as I loved it a lot, and I loved animals a lot, and learned a lot from my granddad and my dad as far as how to take care of things and do things. And it was just a great country life.
So let's back up. What was your name at birth? What was your given name?
My name is the one I keep today. It's Billy Shane Scott. I don't know there was any fans out there, but there was a movie called Shane, and my parents had seen that movie when my mom was expecting, and so they gave me the name Shane as my middle name. And kind of an unusual story there is that as I was growing up, kind of got into the junior high and high school area, my dad kind of reminded me that I always should use Shane in my middle name. He said, because if you don't, they'll call you probably Bill or William or something. And so I started using Billy Shane, and that's kind of the way it's been for all these years.
Mm-hmm. So who's mom and dad? Tell me.
My mom and dad, my mom was Ramona, and my dad was Bob. And just great people. My mom's still alive. She's 94 years old, I believe, today. Maybe 95. 95. I get a little help from my wife over there. So, yeah, she's 95. We still call her Granny. And
she lives in the area.
Yeah, she lives in Minco. Still lives at Minco. Most of my sister, I got a sister lives around Minco, and I got a brother lives around Minco. So we kind of grew up there. I was the one to travel the farthest away. I'm clear down here in Amber. So anyway,
that's a far piece.
Yes, it is for us.
So give me a couple of memories of growing up on the farm.
Well, I was probably I was a little mischievous at times, probably growing up, and we grew up there. My dad raised horses, and we showed Appaloosa horses a lot, along with farming, and she was talking the other day. We were talking a little bit about a story that when I was growing up, maybe 9, 10 or whatnot, we always used horses to get up cattle and stuff. But my dad had got a little donkey one time, a Jenny named Rosie, and that was the one I got to ride. I didn't get to ride a horse. I had to ride the little donkey everywhere. But there was just lots of things. I can remember lots of stories and tales, but it was a great life for me.
So on the farm, did you start? Were you in 4-H for a few years?
Yes, 4-H program was pretty big back then, and then obviously when I got into high school, got into the FFA program. Showed hogs was the main thing that I did, and that was kind of the thing that a lot of students did. We was always showing hogs. Traveled to. Even back then, we would travel to Fort Worth and show, and as when Fort Worth would allow Okies, and we went to San Antonio one time with some hogs with a group of kids. So it was always good times there too.
This is Minco High.
Yes, sir.
So Minco FFA chapter.
You bet.
So were you an officer?
My senior year, I believe I was. Yes, and we had a big chapter there. Ironically, I can remember. We went to a few ag teachers the 4 years I was in high school there, and but I remember my first teacher there. Don Proctor was my teacher there, and he kind of got us involved in a few things. But then the next few years, we were still involved showing hogs. Maybe not as many opportunities that I saw, and so anyway, it was still good.
Did you have crosses, or did you have
we
some
showed Hampshire hogs, and of course a few crosses. Back then, there was a lot of course when we were showing some, we raised some hamps, but we showed a lot of Poland pigs and some of those purebred hogs. More the thing back then as they are compared today with the crosses.
Yeah, they were a lot more prominent.
Yes,
probably in that,
yes,
in that
no
era,
doubt,
so.
no doubt.
So, what do you think you learned in FFA? In other words, what really impressed you about FFA? Because something tripped you that you wanted to eventually become an ag teacher. But what was that first?
It was just kind of the love of agriculture, and just appreciating the work that people put into it and seeing the results. My dad was always one that was he was one to kind of try to find that little pig, maybe he's a little greener or a little deal, just give good care. And he was always, the idea of working hard to make things better. And so that's always been a big influence on me.
What else you do in school?
In high school, I like a lot of students back then, we were pretty involved in sports. I was, we did some sports and stuff like that, and just basic high school students, a little fun here and there.
I hear you were pretty good though.
I don't know. I was kind of like my teaching. I was been blessed to be around good people, and good people make you better. But yeah, we had pretty good successful football teams. I was on a couple state champion teams, so not too bad.
That's an achievement.
Yes,
wow.
it was. Yes.
So, did you continue football into college?
Oh no. That's the reason why I was around some good ones. Some of them did, but I knew my days were numbered. High school was going to be as far as I needed to try to pursue to go. Yes, sir.
What year was graduation for that?
I graduated in 1971.
How big of a class?
There was about 30 of us back then. We were talking about that just the other day with my brother-in-law. I imagine about 30, 35 in the graduating class of Minko High School.
Okay. Graduate there. What was where'd you go to?
That's kind of the thing. I'd always knew I was going to do agriculture. All I knew was OSU, and not that I had a lot of ties there or family, because I was going to be one of the first ones kind of out of my family to go and continue in college. And so went to OSU. Actually was planning on, really didn't know what I was planning on, but I was going to major in animal science at first, and I did. I had maybe little visions of being a vet, but that quickly went away after I got up there. But I got my degree, actually, in animal science. My senior year, I was fixing to graduate in animal science, and I really didn't have any idea what I was planning on doing, and I was kind of looking for a job maybe, and then I really wasn't doing a real good job with that. So in the back of my mind was maybe teaching ag. And so that spring I went in and talked to Dr. Terry, senior Dr. Terry, and we visited a little bit, and he said, I think I can get you out maybe in a couple of summers and another year. So that's how it all started.
So you went a little bit longer, and
yes,
got that,
I needed a little more education, I guess,
yeah.
And it was a good deal.
So what year did you graduate from OSU?
Well, I actually started teaching here. I guess that would have been 70. Let's see, 71 is when I graduated. 75. I graduated 75 with my degree in animal science. In 76 in the spring was when I got out, and I started teaching here in the fall of 76. Yes,
had that ag education degree by then, or you had?
Yeah, they put me in a master's program, which I didn't know I was going to be a master, and I never did finish that master's program because once I got out, I just stayed so busy teaching that I never went back. And, So anyway, but no, Dr. Terry was great. I mean, that's an understatement. But anyway,
Bob Terry's one of my favorites.
Yeah,
for sure.
he was really good and got me going, and so anyway, it's been a blessing.
So you got that turned around. You actually made that decision and of course you had a great background on the animal science thing. So that probably this type of a rural community, that probably did you well.
Yes, it did. And yet there was so much more to learn, but at least I had a pretty good background in some areas, I was very fortunate to go do my student teaching under a gentleman up there at Dennis Delosier at Copan, about 8 miles south of the Kansas line up there, and
that's what northeastern.
Northeast, right north of Bartlesville,
right.
Up in there. I certainly had to get on the Rand McNally to find it, but the Google days weren't yet, But
you were getting far away from Minco.
I was going way out there. So anyway, but once I got there, it just all seemed to fall into place. I mean, Mr. Delosier was just great, and I may get a little choked at times talking about him because he meant so much to me, and certainly I wouldn't be the teacher I was if I hadn't got that opportunity to be there and watch him and learn from him.
How did your student teaching experience prepare you to come and actually take on an entire department by yourself?
Well, watching him and seeing how he got the community. Of course, it was like that here too. But quickly realized you had to get people involved, parents involved to help and stuff, and just everything he did was just, tailor-made for a small community. And when I got here, then obviously I still had to make a lot of mistakes, but at least I knew kind of which way I wanted to go with a lot of things. And I was following a gentleman, Mr. Ridge had been here for 29 years when I started here. So
wow.
He had been a big fixture in the community. And back then the ag teachers were everything in the community. There was a volunteer fire department, the Kiwanis Club. They built the bleachers, Little League, everything. They were the person, They were community at its best. So
like all the other teachers in the high school, they got summer off. An ag teacher doesn't do that.
Yeah. No, Mr. Ridge, I came here and he was doing all kinds of things, obviously, and he'd be helping farmers harvest wheat and everything, and just stay busy. And it was a full-time job. It sure was.
So how did you learn? In other words, you came, by that point Amber Pocasset was already an entity, wasn't it?
Yes, they consolidated. They'd been consolidated for about 10 years, and by the time I got here, some of the rivalry and stuff had kind of left a little bit, but there was still a little bit of community differences, but not much. It was just, and the superintendent that I had, first superintendent there was Mr. Jackson, and he'd been here about the time since they consolidated and stayed another 20 years or so. He was just a great guy too. Those two gentlemen meant a lot to me too, as far as getting me started and kind of keeping me going and covering when I made mistakes. So.
We're talking today with Billy Scott, who's just now in the process of winding down his career as the agricultural teacher. Was it VOAG when you first started?
Yes, it was definitely VOAG.
Okay,
yep.
So VOAG, and eventually they've now called teachers in this arena ag education instructors or ag education teachers.
Yes.
So you've been here? Your first year. How did they recruit you?
Actually, of course, at that time, there was always I think that year we had like 40, maybe some student teachers coming out, and there was in an area there that a lot of them probably wouldn't get a job at first, and I was very fortunate. I mentioned Mr. Proctor there. He was county agent down there. I know the school that I went to interview was Duke, and I think that's maybe Jefferson County. I'm not real sure, but anyway, I went down there to interview, and then kind of coming back up through this area, my parents had kind of found out from my superintendent at Minco that this job was going to open up, and the superintendent here, Mr. Jackson, was very good friends with the superintendent at Minco, which was a very good family friend, and he knew me, and so
friend of a friend,
and that's kind of those two had a lot of stories of how this all went down. But I know Mr. Mackey helped me a lot and convinced Mr. Jackson that he needed to hire me, and so anyway, that's how I got the job. I was very fortunate there, and so a little bit of a break.
Now you probably didn't have the Ag building at that point, did you? Or did
Actually, this building had just been built. And that's another thing when you look around in here. A few years later, I realized that, man, this thing was way ahead of its time as far as when those guys built this. And it was, so I've been in it for 48 years, and I think Mr. Ridge was in it for a year or two before I came. So it's about 50 years old, but it looks a lot. It's pretty nice. We like it still. There's thoughts probably in the next year or two, maybe building a new one, but I kind of wanted to finish up in this one.
I guess they almost need a bigger room, obviously, to hold all the trophies and all the plaques and everything. The walls are covered.
We've been very fortunate over the years. Had a lot of great students, and they take a lot of pride in it. We take a lot of pride in what we get accomplished. So, been very fortunate.
First year. What do you remember?
There were just survive, just try to survive. I mean, obviously, even though you think pretty good, you get here, but really, it was the kids was they were very fortunate. Very hardworking and stuff, and it was very rural. Had a lot of rural students. I mean, there's like dairy, a lot of dairy farmers and cattle farmers and stuff. And it was very ag-related. Agriculture was very important, but I had to learn a lot of lessons. But it went fast, just like all of them have, and then you just kept trying to learn and add to it and get maybe a little more involved in activities. Had a great chapter, but we kept always trying to do just a little bit more and add a few more activities and opportunities for students.
So did you come in the fall of 75 or the fall of 76?
Fall of 76.
76. So 76, 77 was your first,
my first year.
School year.
You bet.
And so how big of a chapter? How many kids do you have?
At that point, there was probably about 50-some in the chapter then. And over the years, there was our schools kind of fluctuated a little bit. There for several years, we'd have about 40 in the chapter, and that was really good, an ideal number for single teachers. I thought it was about 40, 45 students. The last few years, our numbers have gone down a little bit, but I think that's just kind of a fluctuation a little bit. Obviously, when we first started, there wasn't any young ladies, as far as in the chapter. I mean, 1969, girls were allowed, but it was a slow movement in the state of Oklahoma. And so it took a few years here before we kind of started getting a few young ladies.
Did you have any girls?
No, not when I first started.
Okay.
And there was probably 4, 5, 6 years. I wouldn't be surprised before we started getting some young ladies in. And today it's at least 50-50 maybe. And that's a good. I like a kind of a 50-50 mix, so to speak. It's a good mix, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So as you got in and you got to, as you got in and you actually started, interacting with the students, finding out what they're interested in. How did you go? I know one of the things that's amazing about your program over the years is the sweepstake awards that you've won, the number of CDEs, the various teams and speech contests that you've been involved with, as well as the show ring. How did you start bringing all these elements together? Well,
like when we first started, obviously I had a little show background but I always wanted to have a diversified program. Because I liked a little bit of everything, People say, well, what was your favorite? Well, this may have been, but I kind of liked a little bit of everything, And over the years, I learned more about different areas as far as with livestock and different things. But always in the back of my mind was this idea of leadership, trying to improve a little bit and trying to involve students. And so as things progressed, there were some areas that we were doing at first that I wasn't as comfortable with, and then we just started adding to it. But I'd always try to also look at the students. Where was their strengths at? Where were we going to be in 2 or 3 years? That would be a team then we might start on, whether it was farm business management or later on when other activities came in like sales and marketing and stuff like that, just try to use those kids' skills that they already had and use that and me learn more about it and teach them that instead of trying to change them to do something like that we normally did because their skills didn't quite fit that. So it was just a goal, to try to, I think pretty sure, if I remember right, kind of there for many, many years that was known as the Farmer Stockman Award. And it was just kind of a goal. But it took several years for us to get to that level. But once we did, then it became a little bit easier to kind of motivate the students.
I think there's about 20 of those sweepstakes awards.
We've been fortunate enough to win the single teacher. 20 times this year was pretty special.
Mm-hmm. So when you look at those students early on as you started, developing that rapport and whatnot, I guess the first American farmer degree or American FFA degree, I guess is what the proper terminology today. But I date myself. But I guess you probably remember those first American farmer degree guy,
yes,
or lady.
I still remember a lot of the first. We were just. My wife and I were just looking at a picture here, and she said, "Well, what's special about that?" And I said, "Well, that was the first parliamentary procedure team I ever had, and that was like in 1990 something, and or maybe 80. I guess that was 80 something. But anyway, those firsts are always important, and I can remember a lot of them, a lot of them.
Yeah. So you mentioned. Parliamentary procedure, Parley Pro, the slang for it.
The Parley Pro, yeah, you bet.
But you did both the junior team and the senior team.
We did it for several years there, and even today, most of those students. We kind of a few years ago, I could see things changing a little bit, and they kind of changed that contest up a little bit, and I just I could see we weren't going to be able to quite compete as well, but. So we kind of switched out of that and moved to some other things. It's kind of like I say, I could see a different group of students coming. But we used to spend a lot of hours at it, and even today, a lot of the students will say, "Man, that was the most fun we ever had was doing that parliamentary procedure." And it was, but it was challenging, and but it was a lot of fun. A lot of work, a lot of work at it. But
is that something you still have? At least some of your officers and members that
try to work on it a little bit. Yeah. That was the thing. I can't remember exactly. I know there were so many teachers that I used to steal things from, so to speak. I would just sit and listen to some of those older teachers, and I never will forget. We was talking with one. I can't remember the gentleman for sure because there's so many of them had an influence on me. But he said that was the thing about parliamentary procedure, that if you worked on that, your officers would necessarily always have more leadership as a general rule. Now, that's not. I'm not saying they don't, but and it proved that way. It just stepped up the leadership level in our school, or excuse me, in our chapter.
Sharpens them up a little bit.
It just makes them a little bit better. And you don't have to practice on it as much at the banquet. They already know their parts, so to speak.
As you've with almost 50 years under your belt, and that means you've given at the monthly meetings or the regular meetings, as well as the banquets and everything else. You've done the Here by the Owl. I know a lot of times. What does that interaction with those students mean to you in that opening and closing ceremony?
It means a lot, and again, I hope I don't get too choked up here. But when you stand up, and kind of puts a little pressure on you too, though, when you make that statement that you hope your advice is always based on true knowledge and ripened with wisdom. You better mean it. You better mean it, and I always try to.
It's a promise. Isn't it? Yeah.
It's a pretty big statement, and so they expect you to be that way if you're going to say it. So anyway, it was a little tough at that last banquet, but I got through it.
Good. We're talking with Billy Scott. I know that not just all those CDE programs. We've mentioned several of them. I know you've done at least close to a dozen of those different categories and whatnot over the years.
Yeah, there's been I'm sure it's pretty close to 10 or 12 of them, different contest areas. Yeah,
and I guess one of the other areas that you've worked a lot with the individual students are helping them get their skills to the point where they can compete with some of these proficiency awards.
Yes, the proficiency awards were probably not as prevalent in those. They are very, very good awards, and we used to be a little more involved with that. Okay. There's just so much time in the day sometimes, and there are chapters that really do a really good job with that, and we try to encourage the students because they're keeping good records, and it's a nice thing to do. It just sometimes we run out of hours, and we don't quite get that job done. Yeah,
literally.
Yeah.
One thing I know you mentioned it from your own FFA career, and then the degree that you got, animal science. You've always had a good show program here at AMPO.
Been very fortunate. Had a lot of youngsters that work awful hard, and some of that sometimes is that's changed over the years, but there's always some of those students that that was what they like to do, and that's what we needed to do with them, and there's nothing out there that kind of works to teach good work habits like the show program or just livestock program in general, whether the show or whatnot. So, yeah, we've been pretty fortunate the last few years, especially, and it's just kind of because some of that's like our second generation now, or maybe even a third generation in some cases that have kind of gone through that and love doing it, and are committed to it to have the success.
Right. So, when you look back over the years, that show program has changed so much from probably your opening, even when you actually were showing pigs, and then your first year as a teacher here at Amber. This thing's gotten crazy on all the jackpots and all the shows that are available.
Yes, it is, and it's one of those things that I think around here especially, and other places too. Don't get me wrong, but to keep it in perspective a little bit, as far as used to, a lot of times we had those students start with the program and get involved with maybe getting a pig or two or something like that, knowing that I was going to try to get them involved in something else, and I think that's what our school, our chapter does a pretty good job. Is we're going to be competitive, but we're also going to do other things also. And so they want their students, as a general rule, to judge or to give a speech too. And so they realize the importance of a diversified program and not just with one thing.
Mm-hmm. So the show program, You're trying to raise up the kids, and obviously you're trying to produce great kids along the ways. It's nice to see some grands and reserve grands and all that to come along for the young people as well.
Sure. There's several ways to have success with the students, and but there's nothing wrong with being competitive and trying to do the right things and have that success in those areas. But I think it's still important, and I think our people do a really good job with keeping in mind it's the student first. It's the student first, and the stock show is just another vehicle. That's all it is, just like contests or anything else. It's just another vehicle for that student to be on their road to a career or to success.
So when you think about those early days when you first arrived here, you mentioned it's a pretty rural area.
Yes,
it's gotten a little more countrypolitan. Is that maybe a way to call it?
Sounds like a good way of doing it. Yeah.
How's that changed the school system and the chapter?
It's changed it some. No, there's no doubt it's changed it quite a little bit to some extent. Because but obviously at the same time it gives myself and other ag teachers the opportunity to be, to introduce more students to agriculture, even though they drive up and down the road and see it, but if they don't live on a farm or something, and to just get back to the basics of production ag. Now, agriculture is a whole lot more, as we understand and see, but it's a good start. And so, in a way, we're introducing kids to agriculture, whereas maybe in the previous times they already knew a little bit about it. But so it's changed. It's changed, but not that much. Not much in our area.
Okay, so. We mentioned the fact, obviously, that you've got some kids that are a lot of those various CDE programs. That's a part of the mix that's giving you that success for the sweepstakes. More recent years, it seems like we've heard a lot more conversation about that you've got students coming in that are really wanting to take advantage of those leadership development programs that are a part of ag education and the FFA. Are you seeing kids wanting to put more emphasis on that as opposed to more traditional agriculture?
I would say that probably that's true, and it just the nature of where we're at, and then when they get involved though with it, they see also the potential maybe for an ag career, and so our chapter's about like a lot of them as far as the percent of students that are going to be in an ag-related job or may not be as high a percentage, but they also see the value of being able to fill out a resume or to be able to converse or be able to interview. I think that's the thing that comes back to me from more than other students, or not from a lot of the students, is you just helped me, or the program helped them so much with the ability to speak and to talk to somebody and to do the proper ways of interviewing and different things, because those are things we try to stress all the time when they come into the classroom. Is just as far as how you present yourself a little bit, and and how you're going to the opportunities that are out there for you, but you've got to take advantage of them and stuff. So, but yeah, I think there's a big demand, and when you see the number of students that we have statewide participating in those activities, it's impressive. There's lots of talented young people that are very competitive in a lot of those areas, and it's kind of fun to watch.
So when you load up a bunch of kids to go to contests, to state convention, to OYE, there's just, obviously a lot of team building, but also a lot of those relationships that are built between the students, but also between you and the students.
Yes. There's always a lot of that, and of course there's a lot of stories to share from time to time on those trips, and it's kind of interesting. The other day when we came back from a state contest, we were talking to some of the students. We're talking to all of them as far as that was the message I kind of kept telling them a little bit, or not kept telling them, but I wanted them to share from the standpoint, because when you go up there, some teams are going to have a little more success than others, and some not as much, and there's always a little ups and highs and lows, a little disappointment, but that's the thing I brought out to all of them. But if you're just, you may have been the one that patted somebody on the back. You may have been the encouraging word, or you may have shared a little information. You were part of it, whether your team did as well as the others. Don't, every point counts, and every friendship counts, and that's what it takes. It takes everybody on the same kind of being committed to it, and just having a good attitude. And they all took that real well.
Seems like you mentioned friendship, and FFA in a lot of ways is a family, not just within the chapter, but across the region, and then really statewide, and even beyond over the years for a lot of these kids.
You bet. It's kind of interesting to see that a lot of times, or a few times, they will see students. They remember somebody from another chapter, and they get to know them extremely well. And that gets back to the networking thing that we talk about sometimes. The contacts you make, and the people you make, and even some of them were very, very competitive against another one or two. And then a few years later, they find out, well, they're just and they become closer friends then, even though they were strong, competitive in speech contests or whatever it might be. And that's always kind of fun to watch that too.
For you, what networking over the years with other ag teachers? Tell me a little bit about that. Maybe name a couple of folks that you've kind of been real close with.
Well, I had so many of them. I mentioned there earlier when I was first starting there, as far as listening to some of the older teachers and stuff. And back then, I mean, they were very supportive, but also, you know, you kind of had to wait your turn, so to speak. You know, they wanted to wait and see how you were going to do. I could list, you know, I had some great friends at UConn. Mac DeVelbus and Red Goodson were good friends of mine, and a few of the gentlemen that we honored there, or all those guys that they honored at the OYE this year with the 6 on the deal. They were all close friends of mine, and you know, they've just helped me a lot. I know all those 6 guys did. I consider great friends, and I know as far as professionally, as far as you know, the gentleman that was very strong. Besides Dennis DeLozier, I've always missed. Raymond Cochran was just he was our supervisor for a while. Of course, he taught there at Guthrie for a few years, and then but he's the one guy that got me on Party Pro and stuff. He would take me by the side and kind of help me out a bunch on that. So you know, I was very fortunate to always have a lot of help, people I could look to and ask about, and I was kind of one that liked to just kind of sit and watch somebody. If I saw somebody was good at something, I was going to sit there and kind of watch them a little bit, whether it's clipping a steer or a sheep or whatever, you know, and try to learn from them that way. Then I'd ask a few questions. But I figured if you watched, you'd get a little more from them than if you just talked to them. So anyway, I wasn't afraid to talk to them, but I sure did like to watch and learn.
Yeah. You mentioned OYE.
Yes.
What does it mean to a chapter like Amber Pocasset to have a incredible, internationally recognized, nationally recognized show like Oklahoma Youth Expo so close?
That's a big advantage for us as far as the traveling. You know, I always tell the kids a little bit every once in a while. We're kind of running up and forth, back and forth a little bit, and I said, "What if you were some Boise City somewhere or Hollis had to make that trip?" You know, so
and that's true.
They have a little more of that. It's just a great opportunity for deal. And the thing about OYE too that's really impressive, I think, and doing even more now is they're making more opportunities with the scholarships and different types of contests up there, and you know, it makes it available for kids that, you know, whether or not their show animal's doing real well, they've got a lot of opportunities with other deals. So I think that's going to be an important thing that they continue, which I know they're going to involve other things for students too, besides just a show. But yeah, it's like a lot of things in Oklahoma. We take some of it for granted, you know, like a state convention. So we got the greatest state convention there is, and sometimes we don't even realize that, you know. But and one of the greatest shows and one of the greatest, you know, organizations, and so there's so many great things about Oklahoma when it comes to agriculture and FFA and activities like that.
You had any kids get interested in the Ag Mechanics show that they've started up?
You know, there again, that's not been one of my strengths, but I know that you know, if I thought I might have some this year, but it's just not an area that we are involved in. So, but there again, that's a great opportunity to what they've got going there. And you talk about something that's growing. I mean, obviously that thing is really growing. So, it's just going to add to the greatness of the program.
And I imagine you kind of alluded it with your conversation that you had with your wife here a little bit about looking at various pictures and whatnot. I bet if I pointed to some of these various plaques or the pictures of the groups of FFA members, you'd have a story about every single one of them, wouldn't you?
There's probably, I can get pretty close with them. If not, I'd make one up or something, make it just as good. No, it is been very fortunate, and too, you know, there's a lot of students that sometimes I can, especially with some of the show projects and stuff, I can think of some students that they may not want ever a plaque or anything, but they made an impression on me, and I know the program made an impression on them, and so there's a lot of students that you know, it's just a great opportunity for them and for myself.
A lot of your life's been centered around this. You mentioned family earlier, but tell me about this lady that you married just a few years ago.
Well, it's one of the greatest ladies I know. Yes, we've been married now. We've been married 5 years.
Give everybody her name.
Angie. Angie's the name. She's the elementary principal over there at the elementary school, and it's just been a blessing. I guess I finally decided to get settled down in my later years, and I tell her, it's been me a long time as far as just looking for the perfect one, and I finally found her. So anyway, it's and she's helped a lot with our program. I mean, the kids especially, having a female influence, especially with the young ladies, it's just been great. She's gone on a lot of trips with us and stuff, and it's just not that I didn't already have a good relationship and good support from other parents and stuff. She's been a real blessing.
Bill, you mentioned parents. I really hadn't brought that up yet, but you being a single teacher, you could not have done everything that this department has done without an incredible parent organization, support group, boosters, whatever the title is that you've used over the years. Tell me about how the parents have stepped up and kind of engaged with you, and as a result with the kids.
Well, it's of course now, as far as the last few years, most of the parents are a big part of the parents. I had them in the 90s, and so they kind of know the routine, and so their parents were big supporters and big helpers, and it just makes it so easy to always know that there's somebody. All I got to do is make a phone call, and I'll drive them, or I'll take them, or I'll go with you, and we've always had that opportunity, and yet at the same time they were always kind of behind me, so to speak. They didn't want to, they knew that whatever kind of what I needed or something, I'd let them know, and then if I did it, that was they're going to do it. So it's been very fortunate, but made it kind of like more of a community deal. So. But I couldn't have done it without him. You just got to have help. You got to have help, especially if you're going to do as much as we did and have done. And they've been really great. I
know that the administration here, school board, and your superintendent, the folks from that office, they've always been very supportive as well.
You bet. There's no doubt about it. And from the word go and even up to now, it's the FFA program, they took a lot of pride in it. We took a lot of pride in the community and within the school, and that's given us the opportunity. I know there's some that places maybe not have quite that support, but we've always had great support, and certainly appreciate it, and always kind of given that opportunity to do what we'd like to do and want to do, and just do it. As long as you're doing it, take care of it, it'd be fine and dandy. So that's what we did.
So I got to ask the question. I mean, you were real close to maybe you'd be able to get 50 years under your belt. Why the decision to go ahead and step down and retire?
I just reached a point that I was kind of trying to. The last few years, I knew it was going to happen sometime, and I was kind of always wanting to figure out when would be the way to do it and how to do it, etc. And I felt like this year I was graduating a really big class of seniors and kind of a special group. But I also know there's a really good group of students coming up. So whoever's coming in, which would be Mr. Nunley, he's gonna have a great opportunity. There's a great set of parents, a great set of kids, and so I didn't want to leave the cupboard dry, so to speak, or cupboard bare, I guess it is. And I just reached a point that I just didn't quite have the energy I needed to keep it going, and I could see myself every once in a while kind of slipping behind a little bit and not getting something done and not giving a kid an opportunity maybe because it slipped my mind or whatever. So I just really didn't have a lot of goals as far as when I started, and so another year or two didn't mean that much to me. I mean, as far as that goes, so I felt like the time now, but mainly just didn't quite have that energy that we needed to stay on top.
Keeping up with these kiddos from the high school ages, that does demand a lot of stamina, and as you mentioned, there's a lot of hand holding and encouraging and being there throughout the entire process.
Yes, it does take a lot sometimes, and but it's I've been very blessed in this school and stuff and the community, but just came to the point where I thought it was time. So anyway,
so what do you do now? You're a young guy still.
Well, I've kind of kidded with Angie there a few times. We'd be out and everybody said, for so many years they've been asking me when I was going to retire, and now that I finally retired, everybody wants to know what I'm going to do. So I've been answered a lot of questions here lately.
I'm sure she has a list.
Yeah. I really just going to take it easy for a while. I'm sure there'll be a few things maybe come up, and she's already been saying, you need to go do this, or you need to not go, but just you be good doing this, or you be good at that. I said, well, we'll just wait and see. So, but right now, just taking it easy for a little while, just enjoying that opportunity we have this summer to spend a little more time together, and just taking it all in.
I would kind of think that this much investment you've got in this school organization, and whatnot, you'll be an encourager to this next young man that's coming in to be the next ag teacher.
You bet. That's been one of my goals is to make sure the program is in good shape, and I'd like nothing more to see the success continue. And so, as I've mentioned to him that I'm going to be just kind of a phone call away, but I am going to kind of stay away for a while. It's going to be his program, and of course he's in no hurry to make any changes. He wants to keep things kind of the way they are, and so that's the goal of everybody. It's going to be some differences, a little bit, and changes, but I think it'll be in good shape.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to kind of watching from a distance, and then slowly kind of slide back in and pat him on the back after a year or two, because that's where we want to be.
You're known in our state as one of the best all time when it comes to single department ag education instructors, VOAG instructors from back in the day early. But what advice do you have for that's kind of a unique challenge for these young guys and ladies that are coming into these smaller schools that have got, like you say, 40, 50, maybe even just a few more than that. They're edging up closer to where maybe they need that second teacher, but they're making do with the single teacher department. What advice have you given them over the years? What advice do you have for them now?
Well, I would say that, it's one thing about it as far as when you're in a single teacher department, sometimes some would say, every once in a while, maybe you go somewhere or do something. I go, there's probably nobody can work with me anyway, so I better stay as a single teacher. But, it's just stay ahead of the game, just make sure you got a good plan. And then if it's not quite working, readjust it. But just stay on top of everything and start slow. Don't try to start big. Start slow, get your success with one or two teams or whatever. And, I appreciate the compliments that, that and the success that we've had and the compliments that I get. But, there's lots of teachers that are heroes out there in those communities, and especially throughout the years. And they may not have had the success as far as with some of the state champions or whatnot, but they've influenced a lot of lives. So I would also encourage people to understand that as far as teachers, they can encourage a lot of lives and maybe never win too many state championships. There's nothing wrong with it. Shoot for it. But just realize that, the everyday work that you're doing can be very influential. And I know of many of them that are heroes out there in those communities that were, and some of the ones that we can say their name, but I'd miss somebody, and I don't want to miss any of them. But some of my compadres, so to speak, and some of those I look to it. There's lots of heroes out there, lots of great ones.
Yeah,
lots of great ones still. We need to work on that. We need to keep that up. But they're out there.
What's the future of ag education, you think, in not just Oklahoma but nationally as well?
I think it'll still be depends where you're at a little bit and what you're doing. I know the science part of it's probably going to grow a little bit more, the agri-science deal. But just like we would talk about that and the technology of it, then we can still talk about, just like the ag mechanics thing, some of the basic stuff with what people are building out there, whether it's, so it's still going to be a great big world. And it just, again, kind of gets back to what's in your community and what's the strength you have and what's the strength of the kids and expectations there. So But there's no doubt that we'll be talking more and more about technology and science and those type of skills being needed in agriculture education.
I guess let's say, as much as anything, what the good Lord brings in as far as those young people that you have a chance to mold their lives and their values and their work ethic and all of that.
Yes, it's a great challenge. We need to always kind of keep that in mind, that the influence that you have every day. When you walk into this classroom, I mean, I've always kind of had that idea. I know when sales came about, the sales CD back in the 90s or whenever that was, I kind of jumped on that thing pretty quick like and enjoyed it a lot. And other ag teachers asked me about it a little bit, and I said, well, if you're doing a good job, you're selling. You're a seller every day. You're selling that program. You're selling something to those students every time you walk into that classroom. If you're doing a good job, and so you may not think you're a salesperson, but in reality you are. And then you got to sell it to the community, and then you got to sell it to parents. And so it's big influence on kids. It can be
right, and all the things they'll do in their life. Whether if they're a farmer, they got to sell their themselves to the banker.
That's exactly right. There's always that opportunity to need those skills a little bit, and it's not always about talking. It's just about honesty or the look in your, the ideas you have and the way you treat people and the way you act with people, etc. It's just great to have that opportunity to maybe have somewhat of an influence. I realize, I've been, like I say, blessed to get students that are already kind of leaning in that direction, and all you had to do was just push a little bit, and they were very successful.
Right. Billy, thank you so much for your time today.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and I've enjoyed it very much. I just kind of like the years. I've enjoyed it too. So I appreciate you coming by. Appreciate you visiting with me.
And best of luck you going forward with that, whatever things Angie has for you to do.
Well, she'll line me out. She'll line me out.
I'm sure if you go check with your mom, she'll have a few things for you to do.
She still keeps me, definitely. Granny keeps Angie and I both lined out. I can assure you of that. So, matter of fact, we've got to get up there this week and clean up her yard. That's the plan. Well,
and congratulations as you go through all the activities here as you wind down this career.
Thank you.
At Amber-Pocasset.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
What a career. 48 years. Billy Shane Scott at the vocational agriculture / ag education instructor teacher at Amber-Pocasset Schools. I'm Ron Hayes. We'll see you soon.